So can everybody see my screen?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay. So in this talk, this is going to run for about 45 to 50 minutes, and I'm going to give you a brief introduction of why you should probably have a website as a data scientist or anybody having a digital presence these days. And first, why you should have that. And the second one, I'll give you a brief introduction as to how to create one. I'll be using some tool called Owlstown, which I found very, very useful and very, very simple to use. There are many other options that I have dabbled in past, including the current one that I use. But I will give you an introduction of one that I think is the most beginners friendly. So if you think about your digital footprint, what could it go like? Just a sec. So you could have your Instagram, you could have your Facebook, then you could also have your LinkedIn, you could have your Google Scholar profile, you could have your GitHub profile, you could have your Twitter profile. So all of these pictures, if you go by and look at your own profile, you would see that all of them will give a very different kind of a picture. So LinkedIn will tell you what kind of places where you studied at, the places where you worked at, maybe the projects that you worked at, or something about your personal life. Facebook and Instagram would probably give you a very personal picture of the things that you like, or your family members, what do they do. And I'm not sure if many of the people would like to share that with everybody in their company, or everybody in the community that they work in. Twitter at the same time is very public, but it's very limited on the number of things that you can put in. You have literally 280 characters, and all you want to write should be able to write in that. Google Scholar will give you a list of presentations, or list of papers that you have published. That's a good enough information, but that's not how it defines your complete personality, right? So what does the digital footprint really mean? So I took an example of Alison Hill, whom I really admire. She is currently a senior data scientist at IBM. And if you look at her, let's say, tweets, you will see that it has a lot of R related stuff, reproducibility and things like that. If you look at her GitHub, you will see that she has a lot of repositories. Some of them are related to statistics, some of them are related to other R related things. Then there are a lot of research papers that she published. I'm not in I have no clue about autism research, so I do not understand most of it. But all I know for sure that she has done a lot of work in different fields. But I do not have a complete holistic picture of what she does. But in contrast, if I look at her website, for example, I have a very good idea of what she as a person is. So I know that she is creating, let's say, online experiences on bringing machine learning and AI problems and solutions to life, and what kind of things she is working on. These are the projects that she's working on. She gave a talk recently, and then I could go on her blogs and look at the various things that she has researched on. So she writes about being a product manager, uh, about lockdown, and then we can also look at her projects that she did, a number of different projects on a number of related fields. But the central point is that you are able to get a more humanistic view of what the person is, beyond what the social media could show it to you. Second reason why you should get a website is that it's much easier to get a job. So David Robinson has this really good keynote on our studio conference. He shares his story of how he got his first job right out of it after finishing his PhD. So in his free time, he worked on a lot of, creating just random content, things such as what geeks would do when they would be free. So like he wrote a very interesting answer of why beta distribution is very, very useful, and what's the intuitive understanding behind beta distribution. And once he went through, he wrote that in long answer, giving the intuitive understanding of that beta distribution. Beta distribution, if you are unaware, is a statistics distribution, a probability distribution. And he wrote that answer, and that answer got really popular. And in like next 5 or 6 months, he gets a call from Stack Overflow management team, and they are like, we want to hire you. What would you like, what can we do that you come to and join us and start working? All he did was just like, he did a public work of writing an answer on a web page that nobody cared. Even he did not care enough. And then he just about 3 months later, he got a job because of that public work. Then there was also this study done by Forbes on why the number of people that have a website and the number of job seekers who have a website, and they found that more than 50% of no more than 50% of recruiters consider having a personal website as a very big thing, very important thing, but only about 9% of applicants actually have a website, which leaves a very huge gap of, what is expected or what is, admired, and what do people really have. So just by having a website, you will be able to push yourself into a completely new competition, I would say. And that would definitely help boost your candidature as well. Then a little bit of my own story. When I was about to graduate from my MBA, I did work on a research project which was actually a case study problem, which was given to us by a company, by the Merck, by Aspect Ratio, who were working for Merck. And so Aspect Ratio, they gave us a problem, and the problem was pretty complicated. We had to find out the coverage for malaria vaccines for about 80 countries in the world, for all of the 80 countries for the next 30 years. And I approached that problem using something called dynamic Gaussian process. And that was a innovative thing, and we got it published in a research paper. Later on, I wrote a blog post about it, explaining my own research paper in a very layman's term, so that everybody who does not have a very good understanding of dynamic Gaussian process, they can also know what I did. And then I shared that blog with one of my seniors who was working there at Aspect Ratio. Just about, I think 15 or 20 days later, I got an interview call from them, and that became my first job after right out of college. So these small things which we seemingly do not care enough about, can have a huge impact on our candidature as well. And the other limitation is that your resume is very, very, very limited. So here is a resume by Debargya Das. It's a resume template format, and it's not his real resume, by the way. But this resume, if you look at it, you will have maybe like what, 4 projects, 4 experiences, 2 research projects, a few awards, a few courseworks, a few education things. And so, but do you seriously think what the time that you spend for, let's say, 3 months working for Facebook, you can explain them in like 3 sentences? I honestly cannot do that. I do not believe that you can do that. And if you limit yourselves into just a few lines, you will just go after the buzzwords, and you will enter those buzzwords, and people who will read it, they will like you, but they will never know what you actually did. So for data scientists, it is even more important, because it's very easy to say that you worked on a classification problem or you worked on a clustering problem. But exactly how did you approach it? What were the difficulties that you faced? You cannot put in the entire story in just 2 lines of resume. And you need to put your story out there. So for data scientists, it misses more than it actually captures. So the resume completely misses out the whole point. The final reason why I think is the website is most important one is about having a digital garden. So earlier we looked at 2 major reasons. First was the unreasonable effectiveness of doing public work, such as having a website. And the second reason that we studied was getting a job. The third is the digital gardens is a very utopic vision, where you can, if you look at a forest, and if you Google for something, if you let's say are interested in epigenetics, you will Google for epigenetics, you will get about 100 articles. All of them are different articles. Some of them are scientific research papers. some of them are blogs, and all of them are all over the place. You do not know what exactly is important and what could make your own case. So let's say you start writing an essay about it. You will find some things interesting, some videos interesting, some articles interesting, some things that you have your own opinions about, but there is no single way to put them all together and make a garden out of it. So the analogy here is that you can create your own arch, you can create your own fountain, and you can borrow trees from somebody else's forests, and then you can create a whole new garden just specifically for you, which is which is exclusively explains what your viewpoint about and your outlook is. This entire idea of digital garden comes from the keynote talk by Vicky Boykis at one of the Art Studio conference, where she talks about how public portfolios are best represented as a digital garden. So if so far, if I was able to convince you to have a website, the more important question then is how to make one. And thankfully, we are living in a very good situation. We are living in the best of the times in that sense. So there are a lot of these options. In my past, like I started blogging in 2017. I started having my first website back then. The platform that I had most heard about was WordPress, and which is where I started. WordPress was a great source, a great beginner source, although it got very expensive soon after, so I had to drop out. Uh, then WordPress is the good part about WordPress is that you have the control, a very good control on what the things that you can put in, but at the same time, it's also taxing and in management. Like it takes hours to figure out what to do things and how to do things. Wix is a very flexible program. You can do a lot of things, really stunning websites, but it's expensive. So depending on what you want, if you want to go for Wix, for sure go ahead. But it's also expensive, and perhaps maybe for a personal website you do not need that much of complexity in your own website. Google Sites is a great option for beginners. Absolutely. This is another one other than Owlstown that I would recommend for somebody who is just starting out. My website just before this one, the current one, I hosted it on Google Sites. One of the problems with Google Sites is that it's not well adapted to write blogs. So let's say if you write continuously, frequently, every, let's say, a month or so, it gets very difficult for them to list out all the blogs on a single page. You will have to maintain it all on manually, which gets very taxing very soon. The current setup that I use, Blockdown with GitHub with Netlify, is the most complicated one in the list for sure. But this is the one that I use because I mostly like R little too much. And Blockdown is a R package which completely hides all of the GitHub and Netlify things. We can one of the best resources I have found on, if you want to go this route, is Alison Hill's Introduce Yourself online workshop, where she will walk you through for about 2 hours, and by the end of the 2 hours you should have a Blockdown website. Distill is another R package that was recently released about blogs. It's very simple, but I haven't like tried it on my own yet. Owlstown is the one that I really recommend because as I'll show you in about 10 minutes how to create a website on Owlstown. And if you just look at the steps that I take, you will be convinced that it is probably one of the easiest way to do it. And Wowchemy is another one which is based for academicians mostly. So if you are in an academia and you want to take this option, you may go ahead. It will give you a good control, but at the same time, you will require some programming skills to actually use it. You will have to know how to use GitHub, for example. So let's discuss a little bit about the content that you can put there. Uh, I read this quote many years ago, somewhere. I do not recall where I read it, It says that if you use the same code thrice, you should write a function. If you use the same function thrice, you should write a package. And if you give the same advice thrice, right, you should write a blog. Uh, and on like for any given week, we have always given advices to a few people how to do certain things, and we have given them over and over. So if you do not know what to blog about, the first thing that you should do, what you should blog about, is the first thing that you care about. The things that you keep on giving advices to people about, they ask you questions about such certain things, and you want to help them out, and because you do not, you cannot have the same conversation and again and again, you end up copying and pasting things. The best way to do it is to write a blog about it, because in that case everybody around the world can use your advices, and of course you can send them the link instead of writing a boilerplate reply. Other things that you should include, the picture on the right, I took it from Allstone's website. It says that you should have usually the homepage, contact info, and other academic content, other miscellaneous content. Some of the things that I believe which are really good additions to your workflow as a data scientist or somebody working with data, you would have at some point written your own custom functions. Even if you do not feel that they belong in a package, you can always advertise your own custom functions. One custom function that I found through this way was a show in Excel function in R, where you could write your own whole code, and then you could just add show in Excel function, like pipe the show in Excel function, and suddenly you could open the entire data frame that we are talking about in an Excel. That custom function came to me as one of the Twitter posts, but it could very well as been could be a blog post as well. Similarly, the kind of codes that you do, let's say how you once did a Wilcox regression or Cox regression. So if you learned how to do Cox regression, you can write a tutorial, a very simple tutorial on how to do it, and which will be useful not just for other people but also for you. A few years down the line, let's say like even just 6 months down the line, you will forget how to do Cox regression, and the article that you wrote, that would be the most useful article that you will find. Then there are also certain times that you have ideas, and you want to write your essays about those ideas to really think more carefully about the topics that you care about. So those are some things that you can include. Sometimes you also can include topics around how to do a certain thing, such as, let's say, how to connect GitHub with RStudio and so on. The pages that I definitely recommend that you should include is home, about, projects, about the projects that you did. About would be probably a summary of your CV that you have want, or summary of CV with additional features of explaining more about your personal ideas maybe. Then a page on projects, every single project that you did, even if it is even if it was you are not allowed to share the content, you could at least put in the things that you did. And in a narrative form, if you write let's say a paragraph or two paragraphs about it, you are much more likely that it's much more likely that somebody who is going to recruit you later on could read over it, even if they are not planning to recruit it. If you yourself later on forget what the kind of things that you did as part of the project, which is very simple, like very easy to forget the things that you did, you can always go back and look at your own blog and revise, oh, these are the things that I did. And contact page is one page that I seriously recommend. If you ever create a website, you should definitely have that. I have generated so many, I have met so many new people just by the contact page, because they just wrote to me. People are very skeptical of emailing you. I don't know why, they just don't like to do that. So but if you have a contact page where you have a contact form and you just ask them their name, their email ID, and what's the messages, most likely you will get a lot of responses on a lot of people. Some people who would compliment you on your writing, or like tell you the stories of why it helped them, which are like really heartwarming. And sometimes you have some suggestions as to how you could improve your website, some feedbacks, which are again amazing and awesome. Sometimes you also get proposals on to work, to collaborate and to work together on a certain project. I once got a project. I once got a project just by getting a contact message from somebody who was working on that, and he asked me like if I would like to join as well. So such things are very much possible if you have a contact page, but I'm not very sure if they would have emailed me if I had an email link. So anyway, uh, now it's a time for a small example. And as you can see, that Zoom timer says that it's like 6 minutes to go. So I would probably take a brief pause here. And if you have any questions, just shoot. And
Yeah.
once we finish the questions, we could we would I would stop the meet. We would stop the meeting, and then we would reconvene. And for the next about half an hour, I'll walk you through an example of how to create a site.
Yeah, Harsh, I think that's a very, very good idea. Let's make a logical break here. But since we have about 7 minutes, if there are any quick questions we can answer here, that will be awesome.
Yep. So this is what I built up while I was working for the demonstration. I built it up and it took me about 15 to 20 minutes. And although I would admit I did cheat, because most of the written content is from my own personal website, so I just copied and pasted. But it proves to you the point that creating the content is far more difficult than actually creating a website. So, and the point of this my talk is to make sure that you get this idea that creating a website is a very simple task, very easy task. The real trouble is actually writing the content. So what you should do is that do not focus on content a lot initially, but rather should focus on getting the website out. So anyway, any questions?
And I'm just reading Lakshman. Oh, by the way, Lakshman himself is a very well published. I think he has double-digit publications in books. Yeah, and he was one of the contributors to this forum. So are you asking Lakshman this question, how to become a data science citizen?
What are the current trends?
Oh, okay. So this is a question that you're asking. Okay.
Okay. So in general, what I have found is that these days, most of the people who are applying for a data science job, they typically have it's typically preferred that you have, let's say, at least a GitHub profile, which says that which tells you the kind of projects that you have worked on previously. Even if they are, the typical projects of machine learning, let's say if you are working on MNIST data set to figure out the digits using neural networks, which is probably one of the most done neural network project. But it shows that you actually were thoughtful enough and you know how to use neural networks. So if you just say on your resume that you have experience with neural networks, it's very difficult for recruiters or anybody to understand what's your actual skill level in neural networks. Do you know it, or do you do you just know what theoretically it means, or do you actually know how to use it, implement it? So it's very important to have a portfolio. GitHub is probably common. My thesis and my point is that eventually what we need is having a holistic environment where you can put in your ideas from Facebook, from GitHub, from Twitter, your own personal essays, and all of them together at one place, and to create your digital garden, essentially. If you use just the GitHub, it's good. It will get you through the interview process for a data science job for sure. But my idea is that like we are beyond our data science projects, right? So how could you include that holistic picture? And that's where the website comes in.
Yep. So there are a couple of questions again, Harsh.
Yes.
Swati is asking, what role does a website play or could play in science communication? And how can it help a medico or a doctor? That's Shalini's question, actually. So two forms. And by the way, 3 minutes. So under 3 minutes. And guys, I think there are a lot of new people. So when we come back, we'll have few minutes there, 4 or 5 minutes to have a quick round of introductions. So go ahead.
Yep, sure. So in general, it's really important to have a scientific communication. I feel that because if you look at the research papers, especially the medical journals, I cannot make a sense out of it. I know that the genes, for example, or the chemicals that you worked on, or the cells that you worked on, for any layman who is not a doctor or somebody who is not in the medical field, for them it's very, very difficult to understand what it actually means. And if so, some scientists who bring out such things out in public in a more understandable way are very much admired for doing so. So, for example, Dr. Anthony Fauci, who is famous because of his position, but apart from other reasons as well, apart from his position as as the government advisor, he has this peculiar capability that he can explain the concepts, medical concepts, in a more understandable form. So people who are listening to it can understand it even if they do not have a very depth of knowledge. Of course, like there's a huge fight between how much pedantic you want to get into, and how much of accuracy you want in. Because if you can get very if you go and start being very pointy, you can get a lot of information, but sometimes it's not possible. So blogs are one way where you can communicate your scientific findings in a more human readable way, so that people who are not in your research field can also understand. uh, uh, for the medicos, I think it's the same. Like, I just gave an example of medicos, but it applies for almost every single field. I work in a supply chain, and I understand that most of the people who are not in supply chain, they do not understand a lot of terms and technologies such as service time, idle time, and so on. If somebody could put in a more informative answer, that informative explanation of the research papers, that would be awesome. Perfect. So by the end of this talk, uh, this is what my example would look like, the website that you would prepare. Now I will just create the website along with while showing you how to do it. So can you see my screen?
Yeah, I'm able to see it. The Google page, right? Google search. Now it's Owlstown.
Yes. So I'll go to I go to the Allstown page, click on get started to have a very simple site. Oh, so this is the site I already created. I did not need to log in or anything, but as you know, I have to go do the entire example again. I will just go ahead and delete it. So to get it started from the scratch. So it gives me a brief introduction of what my site is going to look like and a little bit of information. So so what would I like to call my site? I will probably just go with my personal site. So I'll just say Harshvardhan. And then what is my favorite color? I'll probably go with green. Yeah. And that's it. So I have any publications that I want to import? Not right now. Like, I do not have a created BibTeX file of the publications that I have. So I'll add them all later on. So essentially, so how do I do it? So there are a few things that I want to care about. That the home page, it says that if I want to edit a home page, I'll just have to click the edit button. It will take me to the home page where the content is. So you can see the about. I do not want that to be about. I could call it welcome to my digital garden. Perfect. Hit save, there it changes. So the next thing I want to update is probably this content here. And this would be the content that you would write for your own website. I already have it written on my own, so I'll just go ahead and copy and paste it. So this is my personal website, and this is the content that I would probably like to see there. So I'll I just have to copy it and paste it, but you will have to write it, of course, for your own. There we go. And just like that, I have all the information that I wanted there copied in the format that I wanted it to be. So you could have the same information written in, let's say, Word and Microsoft Word, and you can just copy and paste it all to have the entire information available at the homepage. Now, what about this image? I do not like this image. So I'll go there. They're asking me if should I select a picture. I can select a picture. So, and of course I can update a new picture, upload a new picture and so on. But I do not want all of that. Now let's customize my web page. What do I see here? I have a contact name and contact description. I want to update it. I don't know what to call it, but I definitely do not want to call it contact name. So what are the other features do I see here? There is something called academic department and academic institution. Then a few of my social media details. So it would be really beneficial if it tells me what exactly do I do, what is my position. So if I am let's say an analyst at a company, so I would write analyst at aspect ratio. And there we go. So I have the analyst aspect ratio. But what if I am a PhD student? So I would go in I can of course click here and edit the picture if I want. Do I want my email to show it there? Probably. I've always found that it's better to have the email public, and you will have to deal with the spam for sure, but like it's and then there will be academic department, academic URL, institution. All of these things are simply editable that you could put in whatever you want to do. And institution URL, similarly, it is only if I put in utk.edu, this is go there, copy and paste the URL, save it. And now the academic institution has a URL. Similarly, I could also put a department URL specifically to showcase my own department there. And all of this information only went into edit this part. And as you can see, it's a visual editor as well. So I could just click on that and do not want Harshvardhan, then I could change the title name, or I could say personal log. Thank you, Joel. I just read your comment. The show in Excel is amazing. Like it's amazing function. Anyway, so the site has various other elements as well. The header is, as you know, the header content, the things that you see on the top. The footer is the content that you want. So typically it will say copyright 2022 Harshvardhan. If you want to include some other details, you can of course add it and so on. Uh, if you want to get a pro version, which I am like, which we'll discuss about it a little later, then you can remove the footer credit. Although I do not see like that as a serious issue anytime. So site avatar is the site picture that you see here. So for example, Owlstone has this circle and with underline. My website has this HV that I once created. One of my friend created for me about 4 years ago. So I still use that as a logo. You can use it. Different sites have different things to call it. Some sites call it favicon. I think Google sites call it favicon, and you can update it, of course. You can edit a default banner. Banner is this image, which is not very difficult to edit, as you can see. You can upload more and more pictures so that you can flip through them. You can upload the PDF files. I'll have to save my account to upload the PDF files for sure, because I right now so far I have not created my account at all of these I have done without even creating my account. So let's talk about the main navigation. So as you can see, if I go to my own page, you will see a lot of navigation things about here. You can see there are a lot of things on the top, like there is a tagline about publications, talk, writings, projects, notes, and next. So all of these could go in here at the top. If you want, let's say, the publications page to go here, all you need to do is to put attach publications there. I'll say linked, and there you go. Uh, at the top, I'll see all the pages linked there. So I'll say link, and you can see the publications and projects, they appear there at the top. You would also like to maybe the home page. You might want to unlink it sometime if you want. You can also sometimes want a link. So I have my newsletter that I will talk to you all about at the end of the talk. So for example, if you click on this link, it takes you outside the website and not on any website pages. Let's say if I click on projects, it will take me to a project that I have done, the list of projects that I've done. It's still an internal link, but you can also attach it to an external link. Let's look at some other things. For most of the academics, if you are in academia, you will likely have some publications, some projects. So if you have any publications, it's very simple to add publication. It will ask you what type of article it is. Is it a journal article? Is it a book? Is it a conference paper? Is it a collection, like a chapter in a book? Or is it in some proceeding? What is it exactly? So let's see if it's a journal article. So it asked me what's the title of the article. Um, authors. So I'll say Harshvardhan, and I could one on each line. So the next author could be, I don't know, let's say me again. And then I could save it, and there it goes. I have to save it again to there it goes. So this is the journal article, and the name of the journal, International Journal. And as you can see, right as I edit it, it's all getting populated at the same time in the visual editor. And if I do not like this editing, I can always go here, click edit, and then come to this place as well. These volume, issue, year, they are all fields that you will feel, which you will fail after you have the information. Nothing very complicated, but they're all very, very simple. And you can then click to add a PDF, because in many cases you would like to present your own PDF of the paper that you did, of the paper that you published. You can also have some sections. So not here, sorry. Let's say you can have some extra links. So let's say you later on wrote a instructional blog about the research paper that you published. So you can add the link to that blog here. Sometimes you can also put in a separate section name, which like let's say other, and then in that case it will show you it will put it in some other section. What other things that you can do? You can add the projects in the same way that you added the other projects. You will have to choose a thumbnail. You will if you want to add a lot of content over it, you can go to the pages, click on add content, and these are the kind of content that it creates, which is really, really like huge. It feels only that it feels like you have just 8 options, but it's way more than that, because my whole website, my current website, is entirely based on Markdown, and Markdown can support so many things. Just imagine having a visual text or the source code, or having a Twitter embed, or a video could have. So if, for example, you want to edit into Markdown, just click here into Markdown and go there, write whatever content you want, and you can just do it. Like this is content. Let's see. And there it goes, the Markdown content. What if I want to do embed a video? So I'll go to the YouTube. Is there a YouTube video? I don't know a YouTube video. So we can always put a youtube.com/view to, let's say, something. And whatever the URL would be, it will embed the video right there. So it's very easy that way too. Uh, then some things about the related. So publications which are related to this project, it will automatically show you a list of projects which could have the same publication. So sometimes it's possible that you worked on a project and which was such a huge project that it ended up creating 2 or 3 or maybe several of the research papers that you wanted. So you could just click on this and then voila, that's you, where you go. As soon as you have the project titled here, this is a markdown template and all the publications that went with it. Okay, Joel, I'll take your question a little later once I finish the tutorial about the limitations of Owlstone. Other than that, what kind of people that you have? So you can add a list of people that you have previously worked on. Sometimes you would like to signify the kind of people that you have worked on previously because it adds a ethos to it. So if you choose to do that, it's not very complicated. You have to enter the name of the person, and it's the same link as you had for project name, subtitle, and then description, some thumbnail picture. Nothing very complicated, and everything that you can do pretty easy. Now, what about the page? Like, what about the blogs? So sometimes you have a blog, and where did it go? So site elements, PDF, footer. Okay. Okay. I'll come to it a little later. I cannot find the option. So anyway, so if you, let's say, want to add the social links of your Facebook, of your Twitter, of your research ID or whatever, and all of these go here. So for example, if you look at my site, I have the LinkedIn here, I have GitHub, I have my Google Scholar, I have my ORC ID, I have my Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Spotify, and then an RSS feed. Not many people use RSS feed these days, but it's good to have an option because yeah, why not? So you can all add all kinds of social links that you can think of for your own page, for onto how people could approach you. You can add your own CV, which is not a complicated thing. It's very simple. Just click to add a PDF file and there it goes. What about contact information? This is probably one of the most important things I have found. And I would recommend that you should have a contact page, not just limit yourself to this. And on this page, you should have the contact page. If nothing else, just have a Google form that asks for your email and asks for your other things. So this is my old site that I used to have on Google Sites. And if you go to this page, one of the things after this scrolling down, this is the contact me form, and which is a really simple form. It asks you your name, email, contact number, and purpose. I have got more than at least like 2 years of 2 years of time that I had this website. I reached to about 5 or 10 people just by using this form, which is huge, which is seriously huge. 10 people that I had no clue about. I did not know them at all other than my website itself, but they saw my website and they were interested enough in contacting me about it. And they just used this form. I highly doubt that anybody of them would have simply clicked here or emailed me, because people are really skeptic of writing emails. But if you show them an option of forms or something like that, it's useful. Okay, so I think I have covered a lot of things about it. Now, another thing that I would like to experiment with a lot is the theme. So this is my current theme. This is another theme. And you can see all I needed to do was just click here and change the correct theme. So what about this theme? Let's try this theme. Does it look good? It looks good enough to me. I have the option of clicking on the title that I want, and it shows me all the concise content I have. So if, let's say, I do not blog occasionally and I just want to put my public profile out there, this is probably a good thing because it is showing me all the things that I need to know about that person on a single web page. There are other options as well. So this is a simply simple one page thing where you have one straight page of every single thing. Then sometimes you can have more content and you can experiment, of course. There are multiple others. So that was a brief overview of the themes. Then page views, this content is not enabled right now, but once I make that account, they will give me some insights as to how many people visited my site and so on. So I think that was all of about Owlstone. If you all have any questions about getting to do certain things, like just shoot, and then I'll take Joel's question. Cool. I guess I was either very clear or I was either not clear at all. But anyway, Joel's question was that what are the downsides I see to Owlstone? I think one of the biggest downsides I think of is about control, which is, I mean, not really everybody needs the control. So think about the cars that we drive today. Not many people know how pistons work or how engines work or how ignition works, but we are all still able to drive the car, right? I think that having your own personal website should be as easy as that. You should not be confined to worrying about HTML, CSS, and all the other things that go hosting and things like that go like beyond it. So right now, when I host this site, I have to worry about HTML, CSS, and lots of other things like that. Uh, I keep on breaking my website. I keep on repairing it. I like to do it. I'm a geek, but not everybody would like to do it. So for most of the people who are in science, who are in data science, and they do not like to, learn a completely new tool such as HTML or CSS, the best tool for them is Owlstone. It gives you a little less of a power that on what you can change and what you cannot change, but I think that's acceptable. Other thing about its pricing, you can choose to have this website that exists. So for example, I have this website and you will get this link which you can use bitly. So you can use, let's say, the way I used to do it earlier, that I was used bitly.hersh17. So instead of telling people my whole entire URL, when I did not have my own domain, I used to tell people this. And yeah, it has changed. So this used to be my earlier domain, and then they will redirect me to this website, which is what you could do if you do not want to buy a domain on your own. If you do want to buy a domain on your own, it costs for Owlstone, I think it costs somewhere between $20 to $24 for a year. And I think for $20 in a year, for a year, it's a really, really good pricing point. And as Joel apparently agrees, so it's very good. Like for $20 a year, that literally costs like less than 3 Starbucks maybe. So for 3 days worth of a coffee, if you are going to have a digital presence on website, on having your own website for the entire year, I think that's a really cheap deal, and then you'll probably not get a better deal than that. I would not recommend something like going for GoDaddy and WordPress initially, because in my own personal experience, I found that they do deep discounting a lot, and eventually it takes a toll on you. So for the first year, it will be super cheap, but for the next year onwards, it would be so expensive. It would be prohibitively expensive. I wrote about my experiences of on using different platforms earlier. So this is my blog about that, but I'm not sure it would be worth your time to read it. But if you are interested in blogging, then and you want to experience why I praise Owlstone so much and about over other things, you could probably go ahead and read that. So anyway, here comes the end of my demonstration, and I'll go back to the slides. Any questions? Perfect. So some tips. do not like, I feel that people should not focus a lot on themes initially, that which themes look great and so on, because content is what gets them what is like really going to do the marathon of going to, it's like running the marathon, and running after the themes is like running after 100 meter, when you are going to be very tired of choosing between the themes, tweaking the themes, and you would not focus a lot on the content, which is more important one. Having content on blogs, this is a fairly debatable thing. I have not found it to be useful, because I have always found that people like, I have always found that for 9 out of 10 comments, they are usually just spam, and yeah, so it usually does not make sense for me, but you can definitely experiment on your own. For some proprietary projects, even if you do not want to put in the data, which is of course you cannot. So if you do not want to put in details about your proprietary projects, you can still put in some details about the methods, the kind of things that you tried on, the tools that you tried on, which is significantly useful. Finally, I have this quote from Yi Hui Shi, who works at our studio, and another person that I admire. He says that love like you have been never been hurt, dance like you have nobody's ever watching, sing like nobody's listening, work like you don't need the money, and live like it's heaven on earth. And he added one line like, write like nobody's reading. And once you start doing that, your creativity actually emerges. For the first 5 articles, I would say that you would probably blog really bad and you would be really bad. But over time, so over about 6 months, you would always keep going back to those your own website, and then keep tweaking it and improving it. My website right now, if it looks so good, it did not look so good a few years ago, when I started in, let's say, 2017. It was really bad, to summarize, but it improved over time as I tried and experimented with it. So then, finally, what are the things that we learned in this? I I tried to convince you why having your own personal website allows you to control your digital narrative, and how it is easy to create it. And finally, what are the contents that you could keep it. Uh, so that is the end of the talk. Thank you very much. I have a small personal project that I do on my side. I write a newsletter every Wednesday on data science and R. So if you are interested on things like that, I would urge you, you can go to this link, harsh17.in/next, or you could just pull out your phone camera, and then scan this QR code, and it will take you to the subscription screen. And if you like it, go ahead, subscribe it. Thank you very much. I love to have any more subscribers. Like right now, we have like about 130 people who religiously read the newsletter. I do not know if they actually read it, but there are 130 subscribers. So you can always, if you go to this link, you can read out the previous editions. So you can decide whether you like it or you will not like it. And I would love for you to join as well. Thank you.